Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a webinar today in Abhyasa series. My name is Priya, and I'm an executive business developer and wellness specialist at Abhyas. I'm dialing into our webinar today from Mauritius, and I will be your host today. Today's topic is a very interesting one. It's on women's health and productivity. So before I dive into the topic, I'd like to just take a few moments to share with everybody what these webinars are for and who we are at Abhyas. So these webinars that we design at Abhyas are for communities to bring together people who have very like-minded expertise and experience and interest, and who are very committed to expanding their awareness on topics that are set here at Abhyas. However, these webinars are not designed to provide solutions to our participants. Saying that, we have been very fortunate having very generous panel speakers that they do like to share their tips and tricks and some tools. So by all means, please do take notes, ask questions, share comments in the chat. I will be moderating that as well today. So here at Abhyas, our vision is through the application of experiential knowledge. We envision a paradigm shift in society's perspective, equipping it with the ability to face challenges as it is. And our mission is that we are committed to equip individuals with equal opportunities by providing professional training to impart the courses on mental well-being, therefore creating a better future for every human being at large. And as our founder Namdeo would say, all transformations have one thing in common. It's all about the turnaround in the perspective on what we have been through. So today's webinar is a really interesting topic and one we've not had here before. It's all about women's health, but it's about looking at today's dynamic workplace and understanding how women's health is essential to maintaining focus and productivity in the workplace. This webinar invites leaders and aspiring leaders alike to explore the crucial role of emotional well-being in driving performance and in resilience. So we're going to start with introducing our panel members today. So our first panel member that I'd like to warmly welcome on this platform is Preeti Ajoda. Preeti is a transformational coach, a hypnotherapist, a yoga and a meditation instructor. She is also a metaphysical healer dedicated to uncovering and healing the root causes of emotional, mental, and physical struggles. She is the author of 21 motivational books. She blends hypnotherapy, past life regression, NLP, CBT, and holistic practices to guide individuals into freedom from anxiety, depression, trauma, and limiting beliefs. With a mission to awaken clarity, self-love, and resilience, she empowers people to rewrite their stories and live a life with purpose. Such a pleasure to have you on our platform today, Preeti. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Priyanka.
Our second speaker today is Dr. Sabina Nagpal. Dr. Nagpal is a Canadian-trained psychiatrist and assistant professor at McMaster University, specializes in reproductive mental health and resilience. With an expertise in psychotherapy, performance coaching, organizational well-being, Dr. Nagpal empowers high-performing teams and individuals through transformative initiatives. She is the founder of Radiate Mind, where she addresses the overdrive epidemic with evidence-based strategies and holistic practices. A mother of three with global experience across 7 countries, she is a passionate advocate for women and healthcare providers' well-being. Welcome, Dr. Nagpal. It's a pleasure to have you on our platform today.
Thank you so much.
So, before we dive into our panel discussions, a question for our audience. How often do you find yourself to pause, to notice how your energy and presence influences your focus, performance, and your resilience? So what I'll do is I'm going to share this question in the comments, in the chats actually, and we're going to start our discussions with our panel members. So I guess the first question that is really interesting to kind of talk about a little bit is I'd love to hear from you, Preeti, actually. Please share with us a little bit about your journey and what is it about today's topic that really resonates with you? Thanks, Preeti.
I think I've developed such a strategy in my life that it does take a toll on my everyday life. What I do is I just move my body. Every time something happens, there's something that happens in my body actually. And it just, how do I put it? Like when I pose, what happens is there's something that goes back in my mind that says, I'm not allowed to pose because I've been trained. Like when I was little, I was trained not to pose and I had to do everything. I cannot do nothing. But right now, I'm just realizing I just got a blank right now, but I'm just realizing something came in my mind and I went back. It was like a flashback of my childhood where I was sitting and I couldn't, I spent my whole life just pleasing and, like doing nothing is something that even now, you know, I find time to pose, but again, there's something that happens in my brain that tells me, no, you're not giving yourself this permission to pose because there's so many things to do out there. So it's like I'm always doing and pleasing, and my nervous system learned that stillness equals to danger or disapproval. It's just like right now I'm getting that. Like even today when I try to stop, there's this inner alarm, that goes off, almost like a little voice whispering, you're not allowed to do nothing. So that flashback is my body's way of showing me the route. And it's it isn't just like about now, it's the echo of a rule that you didn't choose, but you had to follow all your years of when you were small, you had to always, follow and follow. We became like followers instead of thinkers. So, but doing nothing is not the same as being nothing. So it's like right now I'm just posing and I have learned that, when you wake up in the morning, I just lie down and I have to pose because then if I start using my mobile and then I get on this world of, like digital world, email, checking all those things. If I don't, I'm not aware what I'm doing. It's like you know I don't know if you can understand what I'm trying to say. It's like posing is actually a form of action, and it's the action of listening, of recharging, of reconnecting. So I just imagine myself sometimes as a phone. If I never charge, like I never pose to charge, eventually the battery runs flat, and the pose is what keeps everything else working. You get it? You tried.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
really like that analogy, actually. That's really powerful. The power of pause. Yes, absolutely. And you are
Yeah.
absolutely right. In the world we live in today, we forget to pause. We don't realize the importance of it. You're absolutely right. So, Dr. Nagpal, is there an element here that you would like to also comment on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the piece that you said, Preeti, about the nervous system, and um, I think that we all in our society now run on this kind of hyperdrive. I call it overdrive, in the people I work with, and even for myself, where there's this tendency to go and go and go and achieve more, attain more, be more, give more, and there's just like it's a nonstop, and as a result, that's a habit that we get into, right? Again, myself included. That there always is something to do or achieve or kind of produce, and actually the effort to kind of stop that can be actually more uncomfortable than continuing on. So the pause can be harder to do than the work, because of this kind of habit that we sort of get into. And I think that, many of us, especially coming back to the topic of sort of women and health, like many of us, women, have a lot of things, men too, but in this case, the women have a lot to juggle. So, either be productive at work, or then be productive at home, or then help our aging parents, or then help our children, or, there's always something. And so, the idea of pausing is often not even a pause, it's a pivot. It's like, I'll pause from work, but then I'll start doing something in another realm. And to turn that off can be very, very challenging. And I love the question that you're asking the audience, to how often do you do that, to kind of check in and just see where you are. That's kind of what I try to do personally, is where I try to, when like I said, I'm not perfect at it, and I get caught in this race for sure. But in my better moments, I try to pause to just check in where I am, and I use my body as an anchor. So what is happening in my body right now is a way to kind of just slow that action down and notice, do I have, is my heart racing? Am I kind of feeling restless? Am I feeling like I have to go? And so I can sort of use my body first as an anchor, and also my emotional state, as a way of pausing.
Absolutely. I think that's really well said, how both of you are sharing the importance of pause and the role that it plays in really checking in on ourselves, because we go through lives not fully knowing how we're processing something. And if anything that we are going through, we're speaking about emotions, we're talking about habits. If any of it remains unchecked, the repercussions can be so much worse to deal with. So I guess let's talk about this a little bit more depth. It'd be really interesting to understand from your perspectives, about what do you think are these natural rhythms that we have as women, and what impact do you see that having on emotional states? Happy for either of you to start first, and to kind of keep the conversation flowing that way.
When you talk about natural rhythms with women, my natural first thought is around kind of hormones and how that impacts women, which I think is really relevant in the context of, the reproductive life of women. Certainly, from the monthly cycle changes, to the pregnancy, postpartum, to the menopause change, like all of these things impact us. And I think those are really relevant. And I also think that the daily rhythm is really relevant. So I sort of see these two superimposed rhythms that women manage, the daily rhythm of, how our cortisol level kind of spikes in the morning, and sort of how it sort of, we're meant to kind of try to bring in other hormones to get us to have restful sleep, by the end of the day. So that's the daily rhythm. And then that's superimposed on the, kind of reproductive rhythm. And so, I think that's sort of what comes to mind when I think about women, and what we, might want to learn to tune into in the context of achieving better health, and how it can be confusing, actually, to try to work in both of those, rhythms. And again, coming back to the pause, and sort of just taking, at least as the first step, to take the time to just check into where we are in a moment to moment. Because if we let these rhythms run away on us, then they're in charge, as opposed to kind of our own mind state and our own kind of, grounded, kind of connected mind, body, spirit, together.
And what do you think, Preeti, on this element of the natural rhythms that Dr. Nagpal is talking about, and those superimposed, I guess, states that women tend to be exposed to in environments?
We have like this natural rhythm as women, which is like the seasons, okay? And we have time where we're blooming like spring, and we have time when we are like shining like, summer. And there are times when it's like autumn, we're like slowing down a little bit. So when we honor these rhythm, like we stop fighting ourselves, and we start flowing with the wisdom of our own bodies. And these rhythm, they shape our emotions And in one phase, we may feel powerful, we may feel like creative, and then in another, we may feel like sensitive, we may feel like reflective. So neither is wrong, both are needed. And just like the moon has like phases, so do we. And when we learn to listen instead of like judge, like every rhythm becomes a gift. And just imagine like how powerful you become when you stop like pushing against the tide and instead ride the wave. So that's when peace, that's when balance, that's when true strength rise from within. So this is what I feel.
That's beautiful. I love the piece around alignment. That's kind of what I take from that. It's sort of aligning with the rhythm as opposed to pushing
Yeah.
against it.
Absolutely. And what role do you think these natural rhythms, I guess not necessarily what role these natural rhythms play in the workplace, but what do you think is the connection between these natural rhythms and women's productivity in the workplace? And what do you think is happening now? And what do you think should be happening based on your, I guess, observations, on your experience, on your reflection?
So I think like, in the workplace, like a woman's natural rhythm, they're often overlooked. I don't know if you've noticed, like, yet they like directly affect productivity. So these rhythm, they are not weaknesses. They are like sources of really powerful strength, of courage, of strength. And just like the moon, moon waxes and wanes, women move through cycles of high creativity, like deep focus. There's a time for like reflection, renewal. And right now, many workplaces, they expect women to perform in a straight line, constant, like unchanging output. And that's like asking the ocean to stop having tides. And the result is just burnout and stress and a lot, like a loss of brilliance. So, what should be happening is recognition and respect for these rhythm. So, just imagine a workshop or like, wherever you're working. So, it's like a place wherever you're working, where women, they're encouraged to channel their energy during high drive phases and are also supported to rest and reflect during low energy phases. Like productivity would rise, and also there would be created a flourish. Then emotional well-being would strengthen, and the connection is simple. When women honor their natural cycles, they don't just work harder; they work smarter, and they work more authentically and with greater impact. And the future of productivity is not forcing sameness, it's like embracing the rhythm. This is how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very challenging for women to follow their rhythm because the expectations are about sort of high performance or output at all times. But I think that there's a there's a mismatch between quantity and quality. So there's this idea that you need to produce, and that might not actually be the highest quality of production. It might be you probably get higher quality if you're able to kind of tune into your highest capacities, your creativity, your intuition, your creative problem solving, your capacity to inspire. All of those are sort of untapped resources that women could utilize and really have kind of biologically we have the capacity for, if we are in more of a kind of clear aligned state, in this kind of state of sort of, again, this kind of mind body spirit state, we can produce kind of this kind of quality of work. But it's very difficult when the expectation is every day this much work. Again, it's not about the quality inside that bucket. It's just about filling it with something. And I think that's challenging. The expectation to do that can be really challenging, based on kind of how the workplace is currently set up for for women, and I think that might be true for men in some instances as well, right? But I think that women specifically do have these kind of biological advantages that we don't have the capacity to tap into because of this, the way that we're asked to produce.
Mm. No, that's really, really interesting. So I guess there's two elements that I want to touch on, but we'll start with the first one, the first element first. What do you both believe emotional well-being is when it comes to women? What does it look like, or what does it mean?
It's a good question. I think emotional well-being is the capacity to look inward at our emotional state non-judgmentally and accept to some degree what's there, like to just sort of see it, accept it, observe it, allow it to live. And when we do that, when we don't avoid our emotions, when we allow ourselves to kind of experience them, then they can be a really beautiful source of inspiration, motivation. They can actually guide us in a way that helps us to remain kind of aligned and high and reach our kind of highest capacities. And so I think when you have emotional well-being, there's less of that fear to look inwards, and there's an acceptance of our emotions and an embracing of our emotions so that we can be kind of guided by them.
For me, it's the ability to stay connected even when life gets like really noisy. It's about having the strength to feel emotions fully without being ruled by them, without, judging it. So in practice, it looks like confidence to set boundaries and courage to speak your authentic truth, and also that grace to recover quickly from all the failures, the challenges, all the setbacks. So emotional well being is knowing that challenges will come, but so will solutions. So it's the inner balance that allows a woman to bring her best self to her family, to her work, to her own dreams. And also, it's like being the captain of a ship, and the waves of life will always rise and fall, but you hold the wheel like steady. Okay. For a woman at work, that might mean staying calm during a heated meeting and choosing her words with clarity instead of like reacting in anger. Yeah, this is how I see it.
Yeah, and I think I
And
love that. And I think that, sorry, I was just going to add to what you were saying in terms of the workplace. I think that when someone can do that, when they can sort of allow those waves to come and go, they're actually able to be compassionate, more compassionate to themselves, but also those around them, right? So that impact at, as you mentioned, at home, in the workplace comes about, as you said, when you are the captain of this ship and allowing the waves to come and go as opposed to trying to just put them all away.
So I wanted to ask both of you a question. So we've talked a bit about our we've talked a little bit about habits, and then we talked a little bit about perceptions when we first started our webinar today. And I think some of one of the elements that came up was women are not honoring, I guess, these natural rhythms, or they're suppressing them. And they're really functioning in the workplace in a way that they perceive themselves that they should be functioning in the workplace. So, what element do you think is needed really here for women to make a change, to shift that? Because I think we all know that it's not possible for us to change other people, but there is something we can change. So, what do you think that is? What do you think it is that we can change as women to be able to respect these natural rhythms and be able to reach for that stage of productivity, or even redefine or turn around what productivity means for women? It's a tough question, I know.
yeah, you're right. I mean, I think Like we can't change other people, but we can really change how we choose to show up. And what women really need here is permission. Permission to honor their own energy, to redefine what productivity looks like, and to also let go of that pressure to constantly proving themselves, to constantly perform in someone else's mold. So the shift comes when a woman realizes, like, I don't have to push like a machine to prove my worth. I can lead, I can create, I can contribute powerfully. So if you think of it, like a tree, I love to use metaphor just for you to understand where I'm coming from. So it's like you think of it like a tree. A tree doesn't try to be a river, okay? And it doesn't apologize for like resting in winter. So its strength comes from being rooted in its own nature. Okay, when women give themselves that same permission to rest, to rise, and to be authentic, the workplace not only benefits from their resilience and their creativity, but also from their how do I call from their presence. Okay, and it's like wearing shoes that don't fit. Many women squeeze into them every day in the workplace because they think that's what's expected. But the longer you walk in shoes that are not yours, the more pain you're going to carry and the less distance you can go. So the real change comes from when a woman has the courage to take off those shoes and walk in her own. And the ones that is made for her. Okay, so that's when she stops suppressing her natural rhythm and starts moving forward with strength, with ease, with authenticity.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I would also add, in addition to permission, is the sort of the changing that sort of self-criticism that I think happens a lot. So permission is the first step, and then when you give yourself permission to not criticize yourself for not doing enough, right? I think that often women sort of, there's a comparison difficulty of this man did this much and then this woman did this much, and this, like, there's everyone is doing more than them, and that can make it more difficult to feel like we can be aligned with our natural rhythm and our authentic self. And so part of it is to say that, I am enough. I'm giving enough. I don't, I'm not, my value isn't based on my productivity. My value is based on sort of my authentic self. Um, the other thing that I would add is, I think part of the achieving some of that sort of creativity and bringing one's best self to the workplace is taking time and effort to nourish. And so sometimes what I see a lot is women either are reluctant to engage in what they need, what their body needs, what their mind needs, spirit needs, taking the time and effort to engage in that. So either reluctant to it, or when it's done, kind of feeling guilty about it, like that if they've taken time from something else. And I think reframing that as actually productive, if you will, or that's part of the growth that one needs in order to get to wherever they're trying to get, that's not taking away from anything. In fact, that's adding to one's capacities, I think is a helpful shift that we can take on, to say that, taking my 20 minutes a day to meditate, or taking my 30 minutes a day to go for a walk, is actually part of my growth, and not stealing from anything. It's actually, in fact, adding to what I do.
Oh, I love the tools that you're both sharing there. That's really powerful. So I guess let's move a little bit deeper into talking a little bit about, we talk about how as women we tend to be very self-critical. We've spoken about here on this platform that as women we compare to others, where we feel that we're not doing enough, where we're trying to justify how much we are doing. Where do you think these things come from? And what role do you think they play in terms of our emotional well-being?
I think the comparison thing is something that I've been really getting interested in lately, because I think we all do it, all, men, women. do it. And I've sort of been dabbling in that and trying to understand that, why is this something that's so difficult for us to kind of let go of? And what I understand is it actually comes from our sort of early neurodevelopment, if you will, this kind of, need to be with a tribe to survive, a need to kind of be in a social structure of some sort to survive. And so that tendency to compare, I think, comes about for good reason, that we sort of don't want to be left behind, if you will. And unlearning that is very challenging, right? It's very challenging to unlearn something that's kind of biologically a part of us. But the difficulty is that when we compare, we engage with this kind of stress response, and it forces us to do more, and kind of try to keep up with some model that actually is no longer relevant in our current society. And that's why I think the practices around kind of engaging with one's spirit in whatever way makes sense for them is really powerful, because it helps us to unlearn, or helps us to kind of decouple from that stress response. It helps us to bring in other chemicals, et cetera, in our body, so that we don't have to be a slave to that way of being. So I think that is something that's just something that I've become more interested in. And then also this kind of psychological piece that we tend to use, tend to have these beliefs about ourselves, maybe negative beliefs about ourselves, and then use other people's achievements or actions to reinforce these negative beliefs. And so trying to look inward and understand them for ourselves, and sort of emotionally work through them to let them go, gives us some freedom from that tendency as well.
Yeah, I second that, Sabina. It's like the roots of all the self-criticism, they often come from this early conditioning. And from a young age, many women, they are taught to measure themselves against invisible rules, to be the good daughter, to be the perfect student, the strong mother, or the flawless professionals. So it's like when you were small, we were told that, we had to always try to prove our parents. And these voices, they become like an echo in the mind, and it's whispering, you're not enough, try harder, do more. And that constant comparison is like carrying a mirror that only shows, like it shows the imperfection, it shows the flaws that we have. And no matter how much we give, like the reflection, it never feels complete. And over time, this like chips away at emotional well-being, leading to stress, to exhaustion, to disconnection from the true self. And the role that it plays is really heavy. It becomes like like a cage. But the shift happens when a woman realizes that she can put down that distorted mirror and choose a clearer one that is going to reflect her strength and her efforts and also her inherent worth. And then emotional well being, it grows the moment that we stop asking, am I enough, like compared to others? And when we start affirming, I'm enough just as I am, like, that, okay, you're doing the best, that you can, and you did also the best that you could at that time. And it's also like running a race, while carrying a backpack full of bricks, and each brick is like a critical thought. I'm not good enough, like I'm not worthy enough, not deserving enough, not confident enough, not lucky enough, she's better than me, I should be doing more. And the heavier the like backpack, the slower and more painful that race becomes. And sometimes we do it like, we're running a race. So instead of looking forward, we're looking at the back, who is after us. So it's like we do that so many of our time. It's like emotional well-being. It really begins when we recognize that those blocks, they don't belong to us. And many were handed to us by society, by our family, by those all those old beliefs. And the moment that we start like taking them out one by one, then we realize that we can run lighter, we can run freer. So this is how I see it.
Yes, absolutely. That's so beautifully said by both of you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, you are absolutely right. Our emotional well-being shifts when we start recognizing that we can let go of things. We've spoken about here, Dr. Nagpal, you were talking about unlearning. That's a really interesting concept. And I guess it would be really interesting to hear from both of you. What do you believe is the first step that we need to take as women to unlearn? And what is involved in creating this harmony within ourselves? What's involved in that process where we can then take ourselves in that direction of sustainable productivity in the workplace? Thank you.
I think the first step comes back to what you already put as the beginning of this around the pause. It's the pause to listen. It's the pause have to listen in a non-judgmental, open way to ourselves and our needs. I think most of our answers are actually within us if we can stop the noise for a second, if we can tune in and listen. Because once we are able to take that space, we start to notice these patterns, like what Preeti was just talking about, these early learnings. We start to notice how they come up in all of these ways that sort of feel real. But if we're kind of pausing and listening, we can see them. We can zoom out and say, no, that's just that voice that someone taught me when I was 3, or I just do that because I got loved by achieving things in the past, but I don't have to do that anymore. So but all of that, I mean, there is work to get there, but I think that the first step is the capacity to just stop and listen with an open heart to what's within us, to the answers that live within us.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, I second that. The the first step is, like to unlearning is mostly to be aware. Like you cannot change what you're not aware of. So you notice what no longer serves you. It's like opening a closet that has been stuffed with old clothes. Some of those clothes, they don't fit anymore. Some were never ours to begin with. Yet we keep on, we continue to carry them. So unlearning means taking them out one by one and asking, like, does this still serve me? If not, release it, let it go. And also creating harmony within ourselves comes next. So harmony is less about perfection and it's more about tuning, aligning. And you just imagine, like like orchestra. If one instrument is out of tune, the whole like piece feels off. But when each part is tuned, your mind, your body, your emotions, your spirit, the music flows beautifully. So for women in the workplace, this harmony looks like sustainable productivity where energy is renewed instead of drained. So the process involves self boundaries, saying no when you mean it, and practices that brings us back to our center, to our core, like posing, like breathing, reflecting, choosing authenticity over expectations. And also when women start from that place, productivity stops being a constant struggle and it becomes like a natural flow. And unlearning it's a bit like deleting old apps from your phone. Okay. So they once seemed useful, but now they slow everything down. So letting them go creates that space for the tools that you really need in your life. And for many women especially in the workplace, one of those old apps is the belief that saying yes to everything proves our value. So when we unlearn that belief and when we start setting healthy boundaries, our productivity actually increases, and we're no longer drained by overcommitment, and we're focused, we're effective, we are like sustainable. Yeah, this is how I say it.
Thank you so much, both of you. Um, so I guess the next element that I guess would be really interesting to talk about is we've spoken about natural rhythms and we've spoken about our emotional well-being and what tends to, I guess, make our emotional well-being a bit off, or what leads to that imbalance. It's us not being aware of our belief systems and our patterns. Yet we tend to see it a lot with women at certain stages in those natural rhythms where they do tend to, I guess you could say, fall back into those old patterns and those old habits. What exactly is happening here at a physiological level? I understand, Dr. Nagpal, earlier you were talking a little bit about chemicals that are released in the body. Um, it would be really interesting to know a bit more about that. And then I guess from Priti, it would be really interesting to know what work you've done in that space to basically, I guess I'll just put the question in a shorter way. When women get off track, what would you say to them to bring them back?
So I think the first thing is getting off track is normal. There is no off track. Life is a journey, and we take a road that we take. And it's, we can expect that we're always going to be going in one way. So part of the experience is moving off that track, or for some people, what I say to them is, we're all going to slip, so even if you've done years and years of work and you feel like, but I was here, and then it goes away, that's normal, that's life, right? It's okay to slip, but the effort that you've put in to kind of build resilience in the past, or to understand yourself, or to look inward, the effort you've put in to understand your emotions and your, psychological traps, is what I usually say, from your early learnings, will pay off. That's money in the bank. So it's not that you slipped; it's that, I mean, you may have slipped, but those will all pay off in your kind of next recovery. To me, that's what resilience is: this kind of capacity to bounce back from adversity, and bounce back stronger. And so every adversity is an opportunity to bounce back with greater strength, right? So that's the kind of the first thing I'd say, in terms of the going off course. From a kind of more biological perspective, or sort of psychiatric way that we think about this as a psychiatrist is, when we have difficulties, whether they lead to mental ill health, depression, anxiety, or other things, or just not feeling at our best, either way, they usually come about from a combination of three areas. So for biological reasons, for psychological reasons, or for social reasons, right? So biological reasons are the sort of chemical, the chemical influences, the neurochemistry, or neurological function. And so for women, we talked about this kind of interplay. So we can get into this on a daily basis, we can get into this kind of hypercortisol state where we're always in anticipation. We're always living in this kind of anxiety, which is a movement into the future and prediction of it being negative, a worry. So, as opposed to being in the here and now, we're thinking about tomorrow, we're thinking about 5 minutes from now, we're thinking about 10 years from now. And our belief is that something bad will happen. And that's all anxiety is. If it was something, if we were looking in the future and believing something positive was going to happen, we'd be excited, but we're not. We're nervous, right? So it's a prediction that something negative will happen. And then as a result of that, we're set to prepare, to kind of over prepare, get ready kind of to fight. And so our biology kind of gets used to that, where we live in this state most of the time. And I would say that there's an epidemic of this. I think most people are living in this state most of the time, a worry about something in the future, a need to prepare and go. And that has kind of just taken over the way that our brains are operating. So that's kind of on a daily basis, and that's widespread. And that happens with children now too, right? That's not just adults. That's kind of, I think, something that our we've taken on in society. And of course, in the in our history, we needed that stress response in order to protect ourselves. And now our physical safety, for most of us, are fortunate enough that our physically we're not actually in danger, right? We usually, most of us are fortunate enough to live in a state where we don't have a need for physical safety, that most of us live in a place where we are generally safe. Not everybody, but even those that are physically safe still live in this way. And so now the safety is against our psyche, right? It's against our psychological traps. It's against our own self-criticism. It's against our kind of own sort of beliefs about kind of how we should be and we're not. It's not achieving kind of what we thought we'd be. Or it's a recollection of history that was unsafe psychologically that we're still managing, right? So, but nonetheless, it's sort of within our mind share. So that's kind of common for everybody, and sort of part of our job as individuals, as kind of families, as communities, as nations, I think, is to learn to undo that a little bit, because I think if we carry on in this way, we're not sort of functioning at our best, to say the least, right? And it has a lot of impact on the world, I think. For women specifically, we also have these kind of, as I talked about, these kind of reproductive pieces that can kind of influence our work and our daily life. And a lot of the women that I work with are kind of in this sort of phase of life where maybe they're noticing that their reproductive life is changing. They're approaching sort of menopause or perimenopause, or even pregnancy, postpartum, these reproductive events that also change our kind of our balance within. And so part of it is sort of acceptance that something is happening within us and not needing to just power through all the time. And part of it is sort of recognizing that we need to maybe bolster other areas of our lives if our biology is making us more vulnerable, right? That's a reality that we kind of have to look at and accept. And then the effort is to kind of, what can we do to optimize other parts of ourselves, our kind of, as I usually talk about, our mind, body, and spirit. So taking care of ourselves physically, taking care of ourselves emotionally, right? Taking space to kind of notice our emotions and communicate our emotions, taking space to look at those unhelpful beliefs that continue to drive us in this way. So we can kind of try to bolster with our psychological side and our social side if our biology in that moment is making us a little bit more vulnerable. And so it's sort of some balance of kind of utilizing the parts that we can use when some parts are not at their best, or recognizing that our biology is maybe influenced by this tendency to go, and sort of how do we want to undo that so that we can kind of take care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely, Sabina. It's like, when women slip back into that old patterns, not weakness, it's mostly like biology, it's like memory at play. And the body releases that stress chemicals like the cortisol you were referring to, and the nervous system immediately looks for safety. And where does it like look? It's mostly in the familiar. Even if those old beliefs they are not healthy, the mind says, I know this place. Okay. And the truth is, every time that you become aware of that slip, you have already started coming back. Awareness is that doorway. And the first step is not to judge yourself, but to pause and to breathe. And like that single pause interrupts the chemical form. Like there's something that happens, there's that like cyclone, there's like this chemical cyclone in your body, and it gives your higher mind that space to choose something else, to choose differently. And I often remind a woman with this metaphor, like, imagine you are a river, and sometimes you drift, like you drift into the rocky patches, but the current, they always knows how to return to flow. And your natural state is balance. So when you remember that, you stop fighting yourself and you start flowing again. So what I would say is, when you get off track, don't ask, like, why am I here again? So instead, you ask, what is this moment teaching me? And how can I return to myself? And that question, it shifts everything from self-criticism to self-compassion, from imbalance back to harmony. And also, like, just imagine a woman in the workplace herself, she won't overcome it. But the moment her boss asks, she automatically says yes. And later she feels drained, she feels frustrated. And what happened is her response, especially her stress response, kicked in, and cortisol like spiked, and like her nervous system pulled her back into this old belief: if I don't say yes, I'm not valuable. And it's not because she's weak, it's because her body returned to the familiar survival pattern. And it's like driving a car, you've learned a new route. So to work, this new route is like, to work, that's, you're just going to any place, it's quicker and it's like healthier for you. But the moment that you're distracted, you find yourself on the old road out of habit. And the body and mind, they're the same. They default to what's been repeated most often. But the repeat, like this repeated, the beauty is just like in the car, like the moment you notice, you can just turn the wheel and you can just get back on that new road. It makes sense to how our life, how we women were functioning in this world.
And I think that I love what you talked about with the kind of the yes mentality and not setting boundaries. And I think that some of the women in leadership that I work with have some difficulty in the moment to notice that they're in this kind of hypercortisol drive, and so things just kind of happen automatically in a way, as you said, because you revert back. And so one of the very simple tips that I usually say to people is just to pause, right? So notice that you're not at your best, and therefore you're not at your best state to make a decision. So the suggestion is just to say, I'm going to think about it. And then you can reframe and relax. Because if you have the capacity to notice that you're out of sync, that's very powerful. Because if you were able to make all of your decisions and plan and map your life when you're in sync all the time, imagine how powerful that could be. And so the reverse is to say that is to make efforts to not make decisions or not take on things or not kind of be led by this kind of nervous response, to say, I know I'm in a nervous response right now. It's okay. It's not good or bad. It just is. But I'm not going to commit to things. I'm not going to take on. I'm not going to do this, say yes to things when I'm in this state, because I know that I'm not maybe at my most aligned place. So I'm going to take time to get back to my regular state, and then I'm going to make decisions.
Oh, that's so amazing and really powerful what both of you have shared here. It's such a sad thing that we have to come to an end of our webinar soon. But I do just, I guess, want to again say how grateful we are here at Abhyas to have both of you on our platform, and of course to just very briefly summarize that real charge that women can take in their lives is from that place of awareness. And when we have emotional well-being, it's because we have made a decision to have awareness within ourselves, to be connected, to have that harmony between mind, body, and of course with our spirit, as both Dr. Nagpal and Preeti have shared. So I'm just so grateful to your time today, to our audience as well who have joined us. And I just want to summarize by saying that if you've liked today's webinar and you like the work that we do here at Abhyas, and you'd like to connect with our lovely community of panel members and with Abhyas as well, of course. And please do follow us on LinkedIn. You'll find the QR code to our LinkedIn page on the bottom right corner of the screen. Or please join us on our website, and please do have a look at our various offerings. We have, at the end of this year in December, I'm very excited to share that we have a very special retreat coming up. It's a 2-week-long retreat, an opportunity for you to get to know Mauritius a little bit, and also an opportunity for you to get to know you. The name of this retreat is called New Awakening, and we have registrations open. So please do have a look at this service that we are offering here at Abhyas. And I'm just very excited to share that our next webinar that we have coming up is this Friday, and the topic is Leadership Begins with Discipline, Rise with Integrity. So with that, I am so excited to say it's been such a wonderful discussion here today. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you again, Dr. Nagpal and Preeti, to our lovely audience who have joined us here today. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a great afternoon. Have a great day. And bye for now. Thank you so much.